Wow, yeah. Curious time it is. Hi there, this is Ona Indigo coming to you from Oakland, California, and I'm here representing the project No Accordion. Now, this is World Electronica Music, which is our passion, and we're celebrating diversity by amplifying extraordinary voices to create a deeper understanding and connection that promotes equal opportunity for all. We're using love to calm the chatter of the mind by supporting one another with passionate expression to share our authentic creations. We want to spark inquiry, raise awareness, and encourage mindfulness. So first and foremost, the call to action today is, I'm going to put it in the notes, is to share and watch the music video that is just coming out today, Friday. So we're really excited, and I'm really excited because I'm going to lower the music now. I've got Ashel Seasunz here in the studio with me, and this man is featured on the new single, which is just released. It's called A Curious Time. And we're going to watch that music video in a little bit. But first I want to introduce you to Ashel. Now, I met him years ago. We're part of a same music scene. I love his message. I love his style. I've watched him perform many times with his band, Doggone Lights. And I finally got up the courage and I asked him to collab with me last year. And he said yes. So I'm so happy to have you here, Ashel. And I wanted to start off and just ask you, what are 5 things that people should know about you?
Wow, 5 things that people should know about me. The first thing I thought of is that I went to space camp in Huntsville, Alabama. I went with Problem Child. I don't know if people remember that movie, Problem Child, but that was I won. Space camp won over Michael Jordan basketball camp. So you know how important being an astronaut was to me. Another thing, that I'm the third. So I go by Ashel, but my mom calls me Ashel. She called me Ashel because my name is Ashley Eldridge III. So my father and my grandfather is also named Ashley. So there you go.
Wow.
What's another one? Speaking of cosmonauts, since we on that tip, one time I emceed at Ames NASA. I emceed an event, so I talked to the inventor of the computer and a lot of cool people who are actually flying out into space. It was pretty wild. It's Bay Area stuff, like Palo Alto. One thing you know is I have a master's in transpersonal psychology, so I study shamanism in Palo Alto, given that. So that's 4.
Just one more.
Just one more. And then one thing you should know about me is that I'm from Chicago. Yeah, you should know that, Chi-Town.
Wow.
Chicago, Illinois.
Thank you. Interesting facts. Some of them I didn't even know about, so thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, I was curious also, what are your main musical influences at the moment?
Well, one of the main influences on this song was definitely Von Benjamin. People, you've heard pieces of this song where it's just yo, this sounds like Von. Von, Eka Becca, Midnight, who is on my altar. This is a roots reggae band out of St. Croix. And Von passed away in October 2019. So really, heartbroken when he left, and he left the planet, but definitely made an imparted a lot of downloads on me and made an impression on me musically. So that's, roots reggae music, hip hop, the message, the neo-griots of this culture, time, hip hop culture. So big influences like Andre 3000, storytelling, Killer Priest, which I've collaborated with twice, big influence. Also, now I'm listening to a lot of medicine music, curanderos and ayahuasqueros from Peru, just Icaro, they call them. So word, sound, power, chants, chanting to the plants, uplifting the plants, so the plants can do the relationship between the plants and in consciousness and in the body. And so that's a big influence. Yeah, I mean, I get inspired very easily. But I've also been liking a lot out of South Africa. There's been a lot of besides the new variant, there's a lot of amazing like Afro house coming out of South Africa right now. There's these two twins, I forget their name, but they just have a lot of fun DJing, and it's amazing. So I'm kind of all over the spectrum musically. Yeah.
Cool. And why do you think you said yes to this particular collaboration? What was the yes?
One, I appreciate the accordion, anything that like sort of the sorcery of like shaping sound with air, with your body, with your hands, and shaping air. It seems pretty cool when I heard the tune, and I was like, wow, this is a cool, sublime tune. And so I had a lot of ideas that came up after that.
Then I was also wondering, what's it been like to work with me?
Yeah, it's been good. So I mean, yeah. So when I got the invitation for the song, I remember no accordion, like the just the uniqueness of the things I've heard. It was, working with accordion and how far you were willing to take that like accordion into like different genre spaces. So I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like art, like being, and I like doing that too, like hodgepodge mixing things, coalescing unlikely instruments and musical ideas into like new spaces. So that was cool. So and I just appreciate it. I was like, okay, cool. Like, and then he was like, we'll do a video. I was like, okay, cool. So I just like the fact that you're an artist and you're like, yeah, let me go for it. Like, I'm gonna go, like, we're gonna go all the way through with the idea.
Right. We're both creative creatures. Let's go for it.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, we did. We've done a lot. So with that being said,
and we're bouncing on balls right now.
Yeah, exactly, bouncing on balls.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna look at this music video that we made. So I'm gonna switch it over to another screen and let's check out the music video.
See, it's a curious time, yeah. It's a curious time. It's a curious time. Diving in a mysterious mind. Warfare with fears, the weapon you find. Different at your eye blind. Curious time, curious time. See, it's a curious time, yeah. It's a curious time. And you in 1984, yeah. Thought police at your doorstep. 6 feet deep, can't floor me, seek, you find the design. You see, we 3, 6s and 9s, so refined. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, divine. Carbon, they try wobbling. Fresh in the sky, put the flesh in disguise. Sketches out a large dream time. Enslave the dark crystal, throw all in the vibe. The siphon of life, but still could not stop the time. No, 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 no. See, it's a curious time, yeah. See, it's a curious time, yeah. Yeah, it's a curious time, yeah. One click will take you on a ride. Whole world stream from the mind. Reptilian brain to survive. It's a curious time, yeah. It is a curious time. Genetic modification, technological penetration, altering the fruit over generation. Belief reflects the information. Disease is sold as medication. guess we all need a little motivation. For unification, the destination. Cultivate plants, liberate the plantation. It's a curious time. It's a curious time, yeah. The singularity can never divide, no. The Polaroid exposed, the polarized, though. The divination never lied, no. See, it's a curious time. The elders prophesied. Yo, where the white is black, the black is white, and night is day. But war is peace and freedom is slavery. And still the will is free to choose a destiny. Celestial bodies in harmony. See, you can be right, or you can be eternity. Oh, we could be the ones to free humanity, yeah. It's a curious time. It's a curious.
Whoa, okay, that was cool. Here we are. We are on our balls. Look, anybody who comes to interview with me gets to go on a ball. So, we just watched that music video. Can you just tell us a little bit what was the experience like to make that?
The video?
Yeah, just the music video part.
Yeah, it was quite straightforward and simple. We just went to we're Oakland, you know what I'm saying? So that was like a beautiful spots to go to next to the water, you know, Diamond Park, different locations, and just just had like a very chill time, just sort of singing the song and being out in the sun, and had our gear and our clothes and just like, you know, saw what matched the different sceneries and backgrounds. So it was good, simple and easy, multiple different directions. The camera shots were coming from, so
yeah, and I had my kid out there too, Jalua.
Yeah,
you met Jalua. My
Yeah.
daughter's been working with me ever since she was 6, so she was kind of the assistant. She took some
AD.
Yeah, she put some behind the scenes shots as well, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna go through the lyrics of the song now, but just the overall, like, what inspired the lyrics of the song?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think it was like I was thinking about what would Vaughn say to the moment, Vaughn Benjamin. I think I was definitely thinking that. So I was just looking at this moment in time, and I was like, wow, this very curious time. Sort of identifying, seeing that there was like a veil that was needing to be pierced and expressed in terms of what some of the ideas that was permeating through the collective. And I wanted to pull some of those down and put it in song form because it's easier to digest, you know. So it was just sort of perspectives that I was having on the moment. So, I mean, a lot of different lyrics, I would have to go through different ones to explain.
Yeah, I was hoping you could read them.
Yeah.
Could you read the lyrics and then maybe stop at certain points? Are you open to that?
Yeah, see, it's a curious time. Diving in a mysterious mind. Warfare where fear is the weapon you find. Infrared at your eye blind. Curious time. Infrared at your eye blind. Actually, I was just remember a moment where I think I was coming from Mali, West Africa, and I was coming into the States. It was like 2020 February. And I remember this guy, I was in France or something in the airport, and this guy ran up to me and he shot me in my head with the infrared.
Oh.
And he was like taking my temperature, but it was just kind of invasive. And I was like, wow, that's a very like sensitive part of my mind, my head, my mind, my brain, where it regulates a lot of part of my body, actually, you know, the third eye. And so I was like, infrared at your eye blind, you know. So it was really just fascinating. That was the first time I got sort of introduced. So now we sort of acculturated and we're like sort of used to these things. We've sort of like got custom.
Yeah.
But at that time, and it says warfare where fear is the weapon you find. And I think when you look historically, when you want to break down a population, we always have to look at what has worked historically. So you either introduce fear, which is a really good way to, you know, somebody come up to you right now and, you know, they can put a gun to your head and don't have to have any bullets in it, but they can take everything you own. Yeah. You know, so just those things, and then or you degrade people, like, so you bring people down and you create divisions in people's mind about their own power. So I was just looking at the conversation like that, looking at the situation like that. Have you read 1984 yet? Thought police at your doorstep, 6 feet deep, can't floor me, seek you, find a design. Have you read 1984 yet? So 1984, very popular book, definitely requires a reread, but Orwell gave us a lot of gems, and I think a lot of the artists in general have this perspective, they have this opportunity and this gift of going backwards in time. They can go in the past, they can go in the future, they can go above a situation, and they can give us perspective. So 1984 is so real in the sense that it says thought police at your doorstep. So for thinking a thought, you could, be imprisoned, the thought police. So now what I witness is a lot of like censorship in a democracy, not thinking that people have the wherewithal to make their own choices and decisions, and we have to like disarm people that we think are creating misinformation. And this is exactly what Orwell was talking about in 1984. Like, in a free society, ideas run freely and people can make their own minds because they're free to make up their own minds. But the guy got real clever with this one, because then it's just like, oh, this is for like the greater good and things like this. So it's pretty. 1984 is a big one to read. 6 feet deep, can't floor me. And it was just something about the 6 feet, like the energetic field of an org field. There's a lot of information that gets shared, intangible information that we don't necessarily know that we're missing. So as social creatures, and we evolved socially, it's when someone indicates like you can't be together when someone it should raise eyebrows, right? So it was like, yo, you have to be 6 feet here and there. But then it was like 6 feet deep, can't floor me, right? Because you see the markers on the floor. I was just playing with the wordage of the moment. And everybody's welcome to make their own song and make their own lyrics about the moment. But this is what, I was thinking. So all those things I was thinking about. That's why, I started to do organizing, and, we had our concerts, we had a lot of different things when information travels really fast, not necessarily information through the internet, but just information energetically. It gives you a clear read on what's really actually happening, like the animals at the water hole, when they turn around and they go, when the approaching predators coming, like it's because they're like in communion in the same space and they're listening to the intangibles. So we sort of lost a lot of that in the past year and a half. So I was like, wow, that's a big part of our evolutionary process we had for a long time. How is humanity dealing with that? Is there any investigation of that? So to seek, you will find the design. You see, we 3 6s and 9s, so we're fine. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, divine. So the 3 6s and 9s, like when we look at codes, for all our numerologists out there, and also our folks who study like DNA and sort of our internal being and our microscopic makeup. The 3s and the 6s and the 9s, those are very like the codes of life, the 3s, the 6s, and the 9s. So I was just pointing to like the elegant design of our being, and also suggesting that the possibility that might be getting tampered with in some level, because there's definitely a level of integrity that we inherently have if we tap into that, and then true medicine is getting in tune with that in a real way. And there's people, and this is not like a hippieism or a new ageism, it's actual reality, and there's people who studied this for a long time that we can consider sage and saints and hard fought for that, hard won knowledge and wisdom, that it'd be advantageous for us to listen to that beckoning call. Carbon 3, so refined 3 6s, 3. So refined 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, divine. Carbon, they try robbing the fresh in the sky and put the flesh in disguise. So same way, just sort of addressing that, like the carbon, like the reality of our shared unification as a humanity, and also just that relationship between, carbon and the earth itself, right? Like there's all these different relationships that that's pointing us to like where like true relationship, like true medicine and alignment exists, that we will get back to eventually, but we have to understand our lessons just like anyone. And as humanity, we're going through a big teaching right now, but the things that remain true are always the things that are always been. So you have, Carbon, they try robbing the fresh in the sky and put the flesh in disguise. So the fresh in the sky, try robbing the fresh in the sky. So there's just an ode to like it's just the chemical warfare that happens in the skies, like the 5G, like the electromagnetic pollution, like all of that, that's happening around us, and in the flesh in disguise. I mean, that goes to like sort of this movement, this transhuman movement, transhumanism, or even just the aspect of like, sort of this AI, put the flesh in the sky. So it's like, the switching of our internal like soul nature with some other like sort of inorganic processes that sort of hide our true nature. When we talk about Buddhism, it's always talking about the karmic overload that's covering the shiny golden Buddha. Underneath is always the truth. So the effort for humanity in this sense is saying like, how do we remove things? How we can get back to the simplicity, because the simplicity is the most advanced. Yeah. So, and then the flesh in disguise. Like I was reading something the other day about children having to, they really read social cues by seeing all of the face and really get trust for themselves in the world by being able to see each other clearly, and all these little things that we've evolved through for long time, humanity. Now all of a sudden we have this sort of covered over, and so people can only see their eyes, and then so I'm just curious, like it's a curious time, like what is this doing to our evolution, so they sometimes the solution can provide more of the problem, so Skeksis outlaw dream time, enslave the dark crystal, throw raw and divide to siphon life. So that's an ode to the Skeksis outlaw dream time, enslave the dark crystals, and throwing raw and divide to siphon life. That's really a direct ode to the dark crystal. You gotta watch it. The mythos always points. Sometimes I say like the poetry is more exact than mathematics. There's more mathematics in the poetry sometimes, because if we look too close to things at a certain level, we miss, the trees for the forest, and we might want to see the forest in that moment to get a bigger picture. Otherwise, we're looking at what we're being pointed to look at. So the Skeksis, they outlawed dream time. Literally, the people of Ra, they were able to touch their hands and they were able to vision with each other, and they could see clear. So that was a superpower that the people had in Thra. And then so they outlawed that, the Skeksis. And the Skeksis were minimal. There were only like 5 or 6 of them or something, like 10 or something like that. And there were way more of the people of Thra, right? So, but they somehow enrolled them or hypnotized them in some ways to think that they didn't have the power they had. All they had to do was connect with each other, and they could see very clearly what was happening to them, and also how to get out of the situation. Enslave the dark crystal. They literally had the crystal in chains, So that crystal also relates to that pineal, because there's quartz crystal inside of our pineal, like liquid crystal. The same thing that powers our computer, keeps the clock ticking, all the things. So it's also in the center of the earth. So there's a element of mining that's happening, like data mining, in the same way. When we're being directed through behavior science to like direct our energy and emotions in certain directions and sort of play the chess game and have us playing against each other, all these different things happen in the dark crystal. If you notice, there was like divide and conquer, like all of that. So look at the film to see how they liberated themselves, though. It gives us a lot of clues. Always look at the mythos, because it says, but they could not stop the time. Right, that sort of reminds me of Bob Marley. He was like, nuclear warfare, all these things. You can fool some people sometime, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. Yeah, so there's hope, so you just got to hold the line, right? So yeah, they couldn't stop the time because things always change. Change is the only constant. So then it goes back to the chorus. one click will take you on a ride, whole world streaming from the mind. The same what I'm talking about, sort of the technology, like, you take one click and the next thing you know, you get an ad for something else. And then you keep going, it takes you on a ride. Next thing you know, your brain is actually inside of the computer. I had a shaman from, Ashel shaman from Ecuador years ago was talking to me about, we give a lot of our power away to our devices. And he was just talking about that. And I think that was interesting as he was sitting, in nature in the jungle, was saying that we've put so much of ourselves into the metaverses of life. But inherently, the spirituality of humanity is always going to be reflected through technology. Technology is only a reflection of like who we are. So we have internet in our brain. We can connect telepathically and just download information inherently. So we have the high technology within our human vessel. So curious time, reptilian brains for survive. So talking about the brain. So like there's a lot of behavior. For me, I was seeing a lot of like, like sort of button pressing on almost like they did like experiments in the 50s around how we can create mob mentality or create cult mentalities even through affecting our reptilian brain. So things that have to do with survival or mortality. So that's really up for people now. So that's a very vulnerable space. And when there's vulnerability around like life and death, it's really easy to manipulate. So I was just pointing to that a little bit. Genetic modification, technological penetration, altering the fruit of a generation. Beliefs reflect the information. So genetic modification. So it goes again into like this whole like, these are sort of like this need or want by certain facilities in our environment, in our society, in our world, who want to do, and it's cool anybody else who wants to do, like do like the Neuralink, for example, or whatever, right? I know Elon Musk is big into that. Interesting idea. Maybe that's part of the future of humanity. I don't know, but it seemed like that was altering the fruit of a generation. And then, technological penetration is really just talking about the shots, right? It's just like there's like, technologies that people are being coerced to like take, but also simultaneously I'm getting, SOSs from our folks out in Northern Territory in Australia who's, saying, because they have like very unique DNA, like our Aboriginal people, some of the original humans, like, walking without food and water for years, tapping into Uluru, the song lines, the actual technology, the ley lines of the earth, understanding their vessel as related to that. And they're really not doing well. And they were just like, wow, we're like dying really quickly right here. And there's a land grab that's happening. So altering the fruit of a generation. But see, belief reflects the information. So belief reflects the information because what we believe is what we perceive. Like what we believe is what we see. So when you can get underneath the belief, into information, you only see certain information. Like certain things we can't even see, we can't even perceive unless we have like a belief to see them. Like we buy a car, a red car, a certain red car, and then next thing you know, we see that car everywhere. It's just part of our sort of psychological makeup. So disease is sold as medication. So looking at like sort of like the pharmacracy that we're living in right now, some of these companies are known felons, and they actually have like really have some of the largest fines in the history of humanity, history of like capitalism. But somehow we like trust them. Somehow they found Jesus all of a sudden. They really want to help humanity. So I'm just putting question mark on that. It's curious to me. Like how can both of those be true? How can we be in bed with, sort of companies that already reveal themselves as, with sort of marketing plans and business models that serve disease, and have been documented to actually like by their exogenesis or malpractices and been fined so much that they have highlighted that they have a process where they keep people healthy just enough to get the other medications that they develop for those different diseases, and they keep that going for long as they can, and they siphon energy, sort of like the Skeksis and the dark crystal, same way, right? Sort of siphon, because what they were doing, it was siphon energy, and they literally put some of the people raw thra, and they actually siphoned their energy because they wanted to have everlasting life, and they wanted to live forever. So they actually utilized their own, that life force of the actual beings, and they sort of enslaved them. So now we're on the 3.0 level of it, so people can't catch it. It's so easy. So it's harder to shoot people or just like enchain people. So we do it by data, we do it by psychology now. So I guess we all just need a little motivation for unification as a destination. Cultivate plants, liberate the plantation. So there's some things within the whole plants that, you know, read these different books like The Secret Life of Plants. So much information is coming out now about the mycelium networks. The medicines that we have available, that's been available to us on the planet for eons, that we sort of overlook, and we sort of want to extract certain aspects out of the cocoa plant, right, to get the cocaine, but there's certain elements within the cocoa that actually have a certain integrity that benefit more than just giving you energy and clarity in your mind. Like, so you're talking about the power of the plants, and also that how that's one thing that unifies us on this blue green spinning orb through space, is that we have access to a lot of high-end technology. Yeah, like, you know, plants, they may seem unassuming because the tree is just sitting there, but they're just processing a lot of our pollution, that nitrogen fixing the soil. They're healing us from glaucoma and cancers. So, and a lot of the pharmaceutical companies aforementioned have already went down to the Amazon and different places and had their chemists investigate what they were up to a chemical level, and just took pieces of that and sold it back to us 3-4 times the profit, right? Or multiple, like 100 times even, right? So just so it's curious that we're going so far out to accept something that is so inherent to us, like accept something else when we have so much to us. But I think it's just a process of the pendulum swing of, we have to go like a little child, you know, we have to go examine the fire, you know, and touch the fire to learn that the fire is hot and then it burns.
Dude.
Yes.
Deep.
Yeah, so it's a curious time, Singularity could never divide. The Polaroid exposed, the polarized. So the singularity, so that's out of like unified field theory. So Nassim Harriman talks about the black hole and talks about the white hole. The black hole, of which we thought the black holes are just things, this thing out before they didn't think a black hole existed. This is another thing too, is that humanity always just like, oh, this, you guys don't know what you're talking about. And then there's always like a period in time, or there's people that we think, oh, these people are heretics, or these guys are like crazy, burn them at the stake, they don't know what they're talking about. And then we name libraries and streets after them, after we shot them down and mowed them down and all these things. So this is sort of like the humanities, like, so, you know, humanities, like what humanity does. So the singularity can never divide. Like, so when we talk about the information coming out of a black hole, Nassim talks about how maybe every cellular structure or every atomic structure in space, in the space-time, actually has black hole dynamics, which is the dual torus of information coming in and information coming out. And we're constantly learning more information. So I would look up Nassim Harriman Unified Field Theory, Resonance Project, definitely check out that. But the singularity can never divide also speaks to the unified field of and connected. We're all connected. Everything is always connected. We are all the all. Even the shadow aspects, the darkness, the light, it's all of us. So the Polaroid exposed the polarized. So when you really take a snapshot of the situation, you can really see that, like one of my aunt would talk about, like as a Black Panther, was like, you know, divide and conquer is a real thing. So there's a lot of polarization in our society right now. But in actuality, it's never been about, and hopefully this is becoming more exposed, right? When we take a snapshot, when history will tell. So the polarized is like taking a snapshot of the history of this moment. When we look back in time, like we've all looked back in so many times, when we look back like, oh, how could they do that? Or how could they fall for that? Or whatever. Now is that moment in time. And you can see that like people are being pitted up against each other. So there's a chess game, and most people are thinking on the level of checkers. But when we have the left or the right, or the blue versus red, and all these sort of like dichotomies, right, we actually miss the nuance that we actually share a singularity. We all want the same thing. We all want to take care of our families. We all want to be healthy. We all want to be, alive for the next chapter type of thing. So, but we are focused on these particular issues, by media and other forces that have us polarized, and that's by design, actually. A curious time, see the elders prophesy. So the divination never lies. So the divination, the beginning of like the pandemic, I work with Dagara divination, and I work with a lot of diviners in Ifa, I Ching, different things like this. And also we can divine through ourselves just through feeling when we get in touch with our intuition and get clear. And you can get a lot of clarity on what to do, what to eat, what not to do, what's what, who's who, all this type of thing. So, but if we're listening to the news a lot, or we're like, our energy field is not within ourselves too much, or we put our energy out here too much versus in here, then it's hard for us to really get us as divining rods of truth and clarity. So actually we did divination. So I have a lot of elders I work with, and I realized I was met with different elders, and they all did divination on the moment, and they all talked about Ogun, and they all talked about metal, which is mind, and war, Ogun, and mind war. Because I was looking for more things around like bodily physical. There's certain things that indicate bodily physical health. There was an element of that, but the biggest indication of a shift in the moment was around psychological war. So, see, the elders prophesize, when white is black, black is white, and night is day. War is peace, and freedom is slavery. Obviously, that's some piece out of 1984 as well. And the elders prophesized there'd be a time when everything is flipped. We live in an upside down world. Russell Means, John Trudell, they all spoke of this. A lot of elders have spoken about this. A lot of prophecies spoke about this moment where, things get flipped. And in order to really see true, we have to see, we have to unflip or take what people are, what the masses is claiming is true, and we have to flip it. And just try it, just to see, like, maybe what if this is like, the people are saying that these folks are misinformers, maybe they're the ones doing the misinforming. You never know. Take a look.
Just be curious.
Just be curious, right? Just
question things.
Just question it. Still, will is free to choose a destiny, celestial bodies in harmony. You can be right, or you can be eternity. We could be the ones to feed humanity. So when we look at time, the scale of time, so just a lot of this is about humanity, and like the big picture about humanity in a moment. And then so still, will is free to choose a destiny. So there is a point when we get clear that about our creationship, that we are creators as well. We co-create with existence. We co-create with the space-time continuum of the singularity, and we're constantly creating, getting information and putting out information. That is culture. Culture creates. We create culture, and culture is also creating us and responding to it. So as soon as we get ourselves as cultural creators versus consumers, or people or reactionary individuals who react to like a hat or a symbol or things like or a color of a skin, like we really have to get into a space of like, wow, we're actually creating these things. So we have to like be in that power seat, that driver's seat a little bit. And then we can choose our destiny. We can say like, actually, we choose this love, peace, harmonic, right? Celestial bodies in harmony. We can be right, or we can be eternity. like at this time too, that was what I mean by that is like, which is a really deep line. We can be right or we can be eternity. Is that you can disagree with somebody without hating them, you know? And I think when we get to that point where we're hating someone, we fell for it, and we've gotten a lower vibration, and we get in confusion. When the actuality is, it's like they're just having a different experience, and we can validate the experience while holding our mind. Like I did another song, and somebody was like, "Oh, how could you do that song?" You know, and I was just like, you know, you have the full freedom to write your own song. Like, you know, you have the same tools as I do. Like, the fact that brought up so much for you is more telling about you than about me. Like me, I'm free flowing. I'm just writing what I'm thinking. It's perspective. It's art. We're all art. Everything is art in my perspective. So you can be right or you can be eternity. Like when we let go of that resistance of like sort of projection and like thinking that we're right or someone else is wrong and all this, that type of battle, then at that moment we relinquish ourselves from the full flow of eternity, which is really our true nature, our soul. It's eternity. And in that space is so much freedom when we get in the flow of eternity. There's so much stillness, so much beautiful sound there. So it's a curious time. So so the idea is that we go through this narrative of this moment, just like we went through so many times already. And then we've had some hard times and moments as humanity. And then we still can come to the point of freeing humanity. And I think this, after a while, like sometimes the suffering becomes the awakening. So things become more clearer after a while. Like you can fool me once, fool me twice, you know, but you can't fool me. So then it's like, okay, well, we can start seeing clear and we can free each other. But right now it's a very curious time. So it's an invitation to be curious and not just take everything as face value, or that we actually know, any of us knows anything. Actually, the wise person knows that he knows nothing at all. So it's just proposition, just to be curious.
Wow, I love it. Gosh, thanks. Really deep lyrics. Thanks for going so much into them as well and bringing that richness of your lyricism to this project, No Accordion.
Indeed.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually listen to the track, and that's when I kind of move around on a ball. So we'll see, shall we just listen to the track now?
Mike's on.
Mike is on right now.
Oh, cool.
See, it's a curious time. Curious time, yeah. It's a curious time. It's a curious time. Diving in a mysterious mind. Warfare with fear is the weapon you find. If you're in at your eye blind. Curious time, curious time. See, it's a curious time, yeah. It's a curious time. Have you read 1984, yeah? Thought police at your doorstep. 6 feet deep, can't floor me, seek, you find the design. You see, we 3, 6s and 9s, so refined. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, divine. Carbon, they try wobbling. Fresh in the sky, put the flesh in the skies. Sketches out a large dream time. Enslave the dark crystal, throw all in the vibe. The siphon of life, but still could not stop the time. No, 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 no. See, it's a curious time, yeah. See, it's a curious time, yeah. Yeah, it's a curious time, yeah. One click will take you on a ride. Whole world stream from the mind. Reptilian brain to survive. It's a curious time, yeah. It is a curious time. Genetic modification, technological penetration, altering the fruit of a generation. Belief reflects the information. Disease is sold as medication. I guess we all need a little motivation. For unification, the destination. Cultivate plants, liberate the plantation. It's a curious time. It's a curious time, yeah. The singularity can never divide, no. The Polaroid exposed, the polarized, no. The divination never lies, no. See, it's a curious time. The elders prophesize. Yo, where the white is black, the black is white, and night is day. When war is peace and freedom is slavery. And still the will is free to choose a destiny. Celestial bodies in harmony. See, you can be right, or you can be eternity. Oh, we could be the ones to free humanity. Yeah, it's a curious time. It's a curious.
Oh, that's fun. Isn't that fun to listen to
That's
that?
fun.
That's evolved.
Yeah,
Aw,
yeah.
thanks so much. So,
Thank you.
before we sign off with you, one, I wanted to know,
See, it's a curious time.
what's the best way to get a hold of you? Like, how can we find out about you and the projects you're involved in?
Yeah, I mean, right now, at Ashel Seasunz, ASHELSEASUNZ on Instagram, at Ashel Seasunz, Facebook, or www.ashelseasunz.com, ASHELSEASUNZ, Seasons of Change.
Whoa,
So
cool.
check that out.
So yeah, I'm gonna put that also in the chat. Is your Instagram handle?
This is gonna be on what platforms is it gonna be on?
This is gonna be on a Facebook page. This is gonna be on YouTube, and this is gonna be on Twitch.
Okay, cool.
And then I wanted to know if there's any other, one special project, one other special thing you want people to know about that you're working on right now.
Wow. Well, I have a project called Essential Food and Medicine that started at the beginning of the pandemic, and we realized that folks were saying shelter in place, and they were saying wash your hands, and we realized like our unhoused neighbors didn't have hand washing stations and couldn't shelter in place. So we started bringing food, medicines, and started taking food from the food banks because the food supply chain had been disrupted from the just the restaurants being closed and things like that. So there was all this food that was going waste, and there was a lot of hungry people in the streets. So me and Sochelle and I, we linked up and we started going to West Oakland. We started feeding people. So we started doing juice, smoothies, things like that. And then from there, now we're moving into a new era where we're looking at addiction and recovery services, because folks, we develop relationships with them. And then and people come to us like, you know what, actually, I want to change my life. And then so when somebody comes to you like that and you have every wherewithal or any capacity to shift that, you have to come the best you can and develop some resources around that. So we created a Cobb on Wood project out in West Oakland, Cobb Clinic, Cobb Kitchen, a Cobb Free Store, things like that. That's at Cobb on Wood. So Cobb on Wood. You can go to Essential Fam, FAM, essentialfam.org, check more of that, or at Essential Fam on Instagram to support that project. But that's basically what's on my mind right now. And
Cool. I'll put that also in the notes so people
Yeah.
can check that out.
yeah, and we also have projects in Dakota Country and South Dakota. We're doing a food and medicine project. We're looking at diabetes rates. They want to open up a health food store. The diabetes is really, running rampant there. So, because they have, it's really still colonized, this colonized space where you only have a grocery store. Your grocery store is the gas station. That's pretty much where you get your food. So, and everyone knows it, but not a lot of people are supporting that. But I don't know who can survive off of eating grocery store food that's at a gas station. So, so we look, working on that project. And the last thing is just to communicate that I think it's, you never know what anyone is going through in life. Like, you can't just look at them and tell what they're experiencing and what type of traumas they've overcome. So kindness is definitely, important to be practiced during these times, and develop that muscle. You'll be a better person for it. We're all better people for that. So just, the big plug for that, just that compassion, that people have endured so much just to be alive today and go through these moments. So definitely hold the line on what you believe in and what you consider true for you. Be swayed in any different way, be sovereign, but also, understand and have compassion that every people come to their conclusions on how to be in life many different ways. And in that way, we don't have to cancel anyone. We can bring people into a state of awareness through our own awareness. Yeah. So it's more, I feel like a wiser way to proceed. Yeah.
Wow, thanks for sharing so much about yourself and about the process of this song. You are involved in a lot of amazing projects. I want to encourage everybody to check out what Ashel does. And just thanks once again for joining us. And remind you to please watch this music video, share the music video, and I will see you next week.
See, it's a
See, it's a curious